call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. Quorum being present. And we'll do a roll call for members present. Ray Burkhalter.
Here.
All right. Pete Murphy.
Here.
Great. Lena Archibald. Nope, you're on mute.
Present.
Oh, thank you. And Jason. Present. Oh, we don't have any audio from you. There's a way that we can get that. That would be great. Let's see. Okay. Jason just did a chat that says he's present. I think that qualifies, right, Jen? Yeah, good. So we can get started. Thank you, Jason. That's wonderful. All right, we have minutes from the meeting of July 10th, 2023 to approve. Pete, thanks for that great job, and thanks for recognizing Bill Fay's contributions too. I think that's important because he certainly made copious contributions to this town. So without further ado, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of July 10th.
So moved.
Great, thanks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kalina. All right, any discussion? Jason, I'm relying on you for chat if you have discussion because I'm still not getting any.
Can you hear me now, Chris?
Oh, there you go. Thank you. Beautiful.
Okay.
Good. So you're good. All those in favor of approving the July 10th minutes signify. Well, let's do a roll call. Ray Burkhalter.
Aye.
Chris Berglund, aye. Pete Murphy.
Aye.
Right. Kalina Archibald.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Hi, great. All right, super. All right, next order of business. I did load up the Jennifer's town meeting schedule for the fall into our Google Drive. I'm not sure if everybody saw that or not. It's as usual in the fall. It's a pretty tight window. I appreciate, Jennifer, you putting a little bit of a some constraints on when things can get in there. So that's good because I think that'll tighten things up considerably. And I know you've got some asks out there for some potential capital things. But so I just want to make sure everybody, number one, is going to be, if your schedules can accommodate that far out in advance, October 16th, because it is important that we have a quorum sitting at that meeting for town meeting. And I just want to, if anybody can't, please let me know or let us know. But I think right now, are we all pretty good on that as far as the 16th? All right, good. Pete, good. Jason, good. Ray, okay.
Yeah.
Seems to be, okay, good.
Yep, good.
So, all right. Good. So we're going to have the next piece of that is going to be meetings during the month of September, because leading up to it, as some of the things, whether they be budget fix issues, whether it be departmental issues, I don't know what we'll hear, but as for Jason and Kalina, that sometimes it's kind of turning on a dime on some of these things because we don't know about them until last minute. So it's basically just getting a meeting put together as quickly as possible. I know Mary had an outside commitment, so she wasn't able. I know Mondays have typically been good nights for her, and I guess I know Jason Cleany, being new to this board, I just try to get a feel for what are good meeting times, if there is a good meeting, for the most part, a better meeting time for you each week than another, or is it just, it all depends on the day type of thing? Mondays have worked out pretty well for all of us, but if that's not good, then we can certainly find another date. So I'll open that up and just try to get some kind of a feel for if Mondays are still good or if something else works better.
Chris, for me, Mondays are probably the best, followed by Wednesdays.
Mondays and Wednesdays, okay, good.
I agree with
Yeah,
Ray.
same 2 days, yeah.
Tuesday is always bad.
Okay, Jason, you had something?
Monday and Wednesday works best for me as well.
Okay,
Mondays are fine for me.
Mondays are best for you, right? Okay, fine. So we'll shoot for Mondays if to the best that we can do that. As it's not on here, and I don't know, can we discuss Paul Bonson, or is that because it's not on the agenda? Is that something we should refrain from?
What do you mean by just acknowledge him, or was there something else?
Well, I didn't put him on the agenda. He's stepped down. I just wanted to, I don't know if we can.
You can make just the general announcement that he is resigned, but in terms of filling or what the next steps would be.
No, okay, thanks. No, I just wanted to, because I guess, again, thanks, Jen, for clarifying. And I probably should have put that on in the context of meeting dates, because as you can see now, we do have a quorum with 4. There will be 5, I mean, really, members with Mary. So if 2 are out, we don't have a quorum. So that's the problem. So, or that's a challenge. It's not a problem, but it's just a challenge. So let's just be cognizant of that to the best of our ability, and we'll just
I think
try to
that's
work on-
six with Mary. Am I counting wrong?
6 with Mary. You're absolutely right. Thanks, Pete. Yep, I'm a little mathematically challenged here. It's too much. Long day in the heat, I guess.
That's what happens in retirement. Huh?
That's right. Thank you. Yeah. Oh God. A few zeros here or there. What's there? A decimal point here, decimal point there. What was that? Everett Dirksen, right? That was his. Anyway, so 6, but
Those
it's
days it
still.
was $1 billion. Now it's up to $1 trillion.
That's right. $1 billion. Pretty soon you're talking real money, right? So again, just sensitivity to that. That's again what I just want to try to emphasize is that we can do that as timely as possible.
I'll make a statement in the minutes about Paul's service. Right? Is that what you want done?
Absolutely. I think we definitely want to.
Did with Bill, and because Paul's been with
Yeah.
us for a long time and done a lot of good work.
Absolutely. No, yeoman's work. No doubt about it. It's spectacular. I don't know if we want to move around. I mean, I guess what we can jump right into is the capital stuff. I mean, we do have some elections to go on and some appointments to the FISP committee and so forth. That's down the agenda. I
Chris,
don't know.
You're moving away from figuring out meeting dates?
No, I think Monday and Wednesday is what we've decided on. Jen, I don't know as far as the warrant is closed on September 1st. So should we, thanks Pete for kind of reeling me back in here. Let me just pull up my calendar here and just see what the first Monday after September 1st will be. It will be the 4th is Labor Day, like the 11th. Do we
Let me
want to put
just
that
look
in?
at one other document here. Give me just a moment.
Chris,
The warrant being closed doesn't mean we have the final language as approved by town council, and I would assume that FinCom would want to see the most final
Yep.
language on things. So I need to get it posted. I'm just opening up my more comprehensive calendar. So the draft warrant is being presented to the select board on September 20th is the plan as of right now. So if you met on September 11th, that would be sufficient timing, if not the 18th.
Okay.
Jennifer, do you mean it's being presented to the draft is being presented? I'm just trying to be clear here. We're meeting on the 11th, and they're meeting on the 20th. You're looking at this solely from the standpoint of our input into the warrant.
Correct. So that's the select board. It's possible that it's happened in the past that they've pulled an article off once they get the draft or they want to see some language tweaked. And then I don't have a date for the joint meeting yet of the select board and finance committee. We'll have to see as things are progressing. But But so it all kind of is indexed off the final date to post the warrant. So I need final approved language on October 2nd, and then I work back from there.
Okay, so,
Chris, as far as our expectations, I guess the question is, will we have a copy of the draft warrant for the 11th?
I would think we should, right?
Yeah, there might be some language, especially on the planning articles. Those usually take a little bit more finessing by town council, but so far I don't think that this is gonna be a crazy town meeting. I don't think that there's gonna be a lot of non-routine articles.
Okay. Would it make more sense to bump it to the 13th? I know, Clean, not a great night for you.
Not
but
a
we-
good, I will not be available either. I am
Okay.
available the 11th, but then I'm gone from the 12th to the 25th. So that's, I am traveling, so. I like the
I mean,
11th.
so Mr. Chairman, you will have all of the articles that by the 11th, you will have all of the articles that will be on the town meeting warrant.
Okay.
You just may not have the final language of them. The commas might not be in the right places, things of that nature, but you'll have the substance of the articles that you should be able to weigh in on.
All right, that's great. Thanks, Jen.
Do we expect any big capital requests, Jen, where we're gonna have to, things we didn't see coming?
No, so I have asked this is kind of jumping ahead, if that's okay. I've asked all the department heads to get their capital requests in now for the upcoming year. Unless there's something that cannot wait that's emergency in nature, I've asked for them to hold off for funding until the May town meeting to give both this body and us kind of more in general to know where we're at going into capital. So unless there's something that's an emergency, I am not expecting any capital on this town meeting warrant.
So on September
Oh, I
11th,
shouldn't just say emergency, something that's indexed to a deadline or a timeline that has to be met.
so by September 11th, we should know pretty much what's happening.
Oh, you'll know. Yep.
So, Chris, looking at Jen's note here, during the month of September, Finance Committee, CIB will hold meetings with departments. So what is do you have a specific intent with those? Normally we have the capital meetings in February, March.
Yep, so this is to get back to the capital planning process that's been outlined for a long time by this town, which is to really pull the capital planning and operational budgets apart, to tease them apart. If there are not capital items for the fall town meeting, those meetings can certainly wait, but to allow the capital investment board to spend time separate and aside from considering the operational budget to review the capital request and help to develop a real capital plan. Then that will, the hope is that that's pretty much wrapped up by the time that you dive into operations. So that you'll know December, January, what the capital plan is, and you won't have to consider that again. You'll know what the plan is going into the May town meeting. And then you can just consider the operational budgets.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, and correct me where I'm wrong, Jen, because you and I had spoken about this a little bit. On the capital spreadsheet, which I did distribute to everybody, and I apologize for password protecting it, but I just didn't want to Ray's done a lot of work on that over the past as far as linking cells, worksheets to try to develop some kind of a continuity of a document. And I just protected it just so that we wouldn't lose that integrity of that document. We can certainly work on it in a small group, but I just don't want to get it out there so that it's, everybody's got a different version. But that said, Friday, I mean, so to kick things off, to get back to what Jen was talking about as far as departments, I'm actually going to sit in with her and with Jen and Anna and just kind of go over, and Pete, I don't know if you're interested in it, because I know you've had a lot to do with that, but just kind of go over what we have on the library right now, on that spreadsheet. And just say, you know, what's real, what's not real, what am I missing? What's missing from it, as far as, because there may be some stuff that I didn't catch. So I think that's kind of like the first step as we go through this process. And, you know, and then as we get into the fall, I would imagine that each one of us would be reaching out to different departments and doing kind of the same thing with that spreadsheet for each department, and coming back towards the end of the fall, end of the fall, probably putting it all together and saying, okay, here is a capital plan. Now, the one thing that I will say is that on that spreadsheet I sent around to you folks, I did emphasize draft on it because it is very much a draft. I do have, Ray had a very explicit process of identifying funding sources for each item that's on there. I am not swearing to the integrity of those as I put those in. I just kind of filled them, because without a funding source, it doesn't tabulate to the overall spreadsheet. So I just put stuff on there. So there's absolutely very little integrity to that, but that will be part of the process as we go through, continue to build these spreadsheets, to make sure that those departments, when we sit with them, not only is that a capital need that they have, but are there, what grant sources are there available to them? What other funding sources are there that we may not be aware of? And hopefully we can build that in as well. So we're not just showing one side of it, which is a horrendous, you know, tab for everything. We're also showing, well, there are some funds available. And I think, Jen, you mentioned that there certainly are for some of these things that will help, you know, I guess, mitigate the pain. How's that for some of these things that will help us to get through them, and also just show that there's support from other parts of the state and federal governments for these things.
From a timeline perspective, if I could just clarify what I think I'm hearing, it sounds like we would aim to start in September this process of doing the capital plan, and we would want to have that done by the close of the calendar year-ish. With respect to the October town meeting, we're not anticipating any capital requests, but if there were one or two, we might want to meet with those town departments with those one or two, sort of pull that in earlier. But the rest, as long as we're done December-ish, we would be in good shape.
Correct. I mean, and again, go ahead, Jen, you jump in. I mean,
I was just saying, that's my anticipation of how it would proceed.
Yeah, it's like, I look at it as like two different roads. I mean, I would not even consider putting on anything for October, incorporating that into this planning process, because that's just going to be, I mean, it would obviously become part of the plan, but it's not going to be sitting down going through everything. It's just like, oh no, I need, you know, like we had, you know, a furnace blew up and we have to replace the furnace, so that's, you know, got to go in. I don't think we have any of those, by the way, but I just that would be separate and distinct. But you're right. I think, Kalina, that's probably a perfect target date, end of the year, if we can get something that we can work off. That brings us to the next piece. Now, so
Chris,
if
if you don't mind, before we move on, the ownership of this capital spreadsheet, have you and Jen had a chance to talk about support for that? As you circulated, I actually read the capital plan again. It's been a while. And in the capital plan, it says the town administrator will provide a summary of town assets to fold into the plan. And I think the general thinking was to try to use this one document as both the list of capital assets and the capital planning. Have you two talked about that?
I think go ahead. Yeah, I mean,
I was just going to say that the capital plan belongs to your body. That's who's responsible for devising the capital plan.
CIB.
Technically.
Yes.
CIB. your body, your second arm of your body. However, I don't think that it's realistic for this to happen in a functional way without collaboration both ways. I think it has to be done in tandem between the town administrator and capital investment board.
Yeah, and Ray, so what I've been trying to do, and again, with Jen's input and her some guidance here is trying to get this document so that it would be the listing of assets for the town, the jumping off point. And once we get that jumping off point, I think it's at that time, let's have some further discussions as to just make sure that we have a process to maintain its integrity from year to year, quarter to quarter, semi-annual town meeting, and so forth. So I know you've worked very hard on it over the years. We've all had times when we've tried to hand off the maintenance of it to the town officials or the town administration, and there just hasn't been the appetite, I guess, or the competency or whatever, or just the bandwidth to handle it. And I think I'm not saying that we have that now, but let's look at what we can put together and then maybe look at it a little closer. But you're right, that's in there. That's certainly in there. That it's the town's document.
Well, it would just seem with some coordination, we can kill two birds with one stone here. The other thing is just functional efficiency. To date in the capital planning process, each department prepares a capital planning document on their own format and their own schedules, and then it's left to us to try to integrate those into the master capital planning spreadsheet. It would be much, much nicer if the department heads could simply use their tab from that master planning spreadsheet to load their requests.
Well, and we can have that discussion, I think, through the fall, just to see how receptive. I mean, keep in mind, we've had considerable turnover in a lot of these departments, and I guess it's that the first thing when a department head is getting up and running is not necessarily learning the appropriate tabs in a capital spreadsheet. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud from, they've got staff to deal with. They've got a lot of other things that they want to get up to snuff with. I think now we've got a little bit more continuity in some of these departments. And again, I'm not going to, we can single out all the departments. We can go through each one of them. But I think we know where there may be some challenges, again, with turnover. I'm just not turnover, but attrition, retirements, so on and so forth. I mean, who's going to be the best?
What about the facilities manager? Aren't we getting a facilities manager?
We are, and we actually have. And Jen, you can probably talk a little bit.
Isn't there a role to play there? Which seemed to me.
So the facilities manager, he's been on, I would say, maybe 2.5 months so far. He works 2.5 days a week in West Boylston and 2.5 days a week in Sterling. He has been assisting and the department heads with identifying their building related needs and helping them to triage and decide, like, I'm going to just give an example. One of the big needs that was on this list was the library boiler. And we're going to dive into this more during this meeting. But in his assessment, we are not facing an immediate $1 million need at the library. We're facing much smaller internal controls. And so that's what he's working on right now with departments, is helping them to identify through kind of a neutral, non-salesman perspective what the actual needs are, helping them find vendors, helping them find quotes, and helping them maybe identify, it hasn't happened yet, but things that weren't necessary. Well, it hasn't happened yet on a capital perspective, something over 20,000, but things that weren't on these department heads' radars for needing immediate improvement, that they maybe weren't looking at. So that is where he's fitting into this role. But in terms of should he be developing a capital plan for the entire town of West Boylston? No, that's not something that's his responsibility.
It sounds like he might be a good person to consult with regarding the priority though. Looking at the,
Absolutely.
I think it's written as a bulleted list, but reading it, I'm intuiting that it's meant to be a numbered list of the priority items. Eliminate a hazard to public health and safety would be priority number 1. Required by state or federal laws or regulations would be priority number 2. It looks like it's in order to me. And potentially for some of the requests, having him be able to give us his thoughts. To Ray's point, I agree that it would be nice to get the same information from every department when they're requesting something. I think we would want more than is in the spreadsheet though, because I would want to understand the rationale, what other alternatives have they considered instead of this particular request, what funding might they be aware of, as well as, information about where it fits in that priority scheme.
So if I could share my screen for a moment. Which I don't know what you're seeing right now, but hold on.
Pictures, the cameras.
Security camera.
It's like,
Good, all right. I'll get it up in a second.
Yeah, and Clea, to your point, that there is a priority column on all of these requests in the spreadsheet. That was built in originally, and typically when they come before us with their requests each year, so anything that is coming in for the current fiscal year, they will bring a detailed justification of the need for that specific, outside of this spreadsheet. It would be a separate showing pictures of rotted fenders, showing repair bills, showing economies that they expect to be able to build by getting this asset.
So this is the form that they were all required to use starting, I think, in the spring. So this field here is where they fill out that justification and rationale with additional if necessary. This is where they put those pictures that the chair was just talking about. And then this is where they indicate what those justifications are. It might be more than one. And the source of funds include, if they know, including those external funding sources like grants. So they are required to submit these, and then often we'll get a quote or an invoice attached to them.
Thanks, Jen. That helps.
Just to make the point though, one of the reasons for the facilities manager is that some managers, and the library is probably the most prominent, have no idea, what they should be requesting in terms of capital improvements or when. And yes, the library is probably the most significant in that. As the librarian says, I'm a librarian, I'm not a building manager. So I think the facilities manager input set is important, and it sounds like he's already doing that at the library.
He's been doing it with all the departments, and I think too, the other place that he could be helpful with this body is if you have, let's just pick a number, $500,000 that you have to spend on capital projects in a given fiscal year, and you have 2 department heads that are competing for that amount of money. He can help this body really assess which is gonna need to take precedence.
And that's important because we've always struggled with that. I mean, we've got the DPW saying they need new garage doors, and the fire department saying they need new garage doors. Who's first? Who's got the most the most significant need? And we never know. I mean, we see pictures and we hear the stories, but yeah, choosing is hard.
It's always hard, Pete, and it's not going to, and the facilities manager will help, but it's still going to, there will be those choices that are going to be hard, and that's not going to That won't change. They should make it easier. I mean, this should definitely help make it easier. And the facilities manager will be present at that meeting with the library, and probably something general. I don't know as far as budgeted time, whether that will allow them to be present at meetings if we meet with department heads on their on the different asset spreadsheets, but it would certainly be helpful if at some point he could have some
You can make
input.
that work.
Okay. All right, good. So I'm not really sure where to go. So I guess to back up, because I think we got kind of blurred into number 3 in a little bit, which is fine. I mean, I think that it's my goal to take these things as we need, as they make sense. But we did mention a September 11th meeting date. Is that something that we can put in the minutes? Galena, you good with that? Jason, Brockway, good.
11th works for me.
Okay, good. So we'll put that in and keep that. And again, if there's nothing to report, then we won't obviously hold the meeting. But are we comfortable doing that via Zoom, or is this something that we would prefer to do in person? Frankly, I think we can probably accomplish it in Zoom, but I know it's a lot to go through. It's sometimes easier if we all have a copy of the warrant in front of us and we can go through item by item, but I'll leave that open. It's not a hefty commute for any of us down to town hall for
Chris,
an
I'm
hour.
fine either way.
Okay.
Yep, me too.
Okay. Colleen, are you good? I know you guys have family, so I just want to be sensitive to that too. So I don't, and maybe we could even do,
It might be nice to do one in person, sometime coming up.
Yep. Okay, good.
Since we haven't.
Yeah, so can
We
we
haven't met
and
yet.
haze the new members? That's
I hate the
very
new
important
member.
part.
There you go. All right. We'll look for that then. Maybe we'll post it as an in-person and hopefully get a quorum.
Chris,
That's
you
great.
distributed the policy that new members buy drinks at O'Connor's after the meeting.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. But we have to sit at tables of 2, so there can never be a quorum. That's it, right? That's it. All right. Do we want to just take a quick gander at the capital spreadsheet? Is everybody, I know I didn't give you a lot of time to look at it, digest it. I mean, do you want to take that on your own time? I'm happy to put it up here and share it with everybody if you want, or just to
Can
kind
I
of get
ask
an
a quick
idea.
question?
Yeah, sure, Jason, go
About
ahead.
what Jen had just shown. Is there a way, I know that form is in Word, but to potentially shift where it's located so we can link cells in an Excel format so that when these requests come in, it automatically pre-populates dollar amount, year, where the funding's coming from, priority, just so there's no way that somebody types a 6 instead of a 9 somewhere when entering it in a spreadsheet, pulling it out of a Word document. I know there are controls to have multiple people look at things and make sure we don't miss anything, but it would be a lot easier to maybe provide a link right in the document for that. And then secondly, I'll agree with Ray, standardizing format on how we get some of these inputs, I think would be beneficial for everybody on this board, and then also department heads. Say 2 department heads are talking about similar things. They're looking at the same spreadsheet.
So
That
that's not a
sounds-
skill set that is in my wheelhouse, but if Jason or somebody else knows how to do that, I'm happy
Right.
to share it with you, and have you make
I-
that happen.
Couldn't agree with you more, Jen. I'm all over it. Jason, it sounds like that's a great way to jump in. Kalina, if you want to jump in too, feel free. It's Ray. I mean, I know Ray, you're wedded to this anyway, so it's that would be tough to.
Well, should we just take this up on the 11th as to what is the most
Efficient way
streamlined
to do it.
approach?
Yep. All right, that's good. I'll put it on the agenda for the 11th. That's great. Okay, good.
How do you
And
normally distribute them, Jen? Are the department heads accessing it from a SharePoint? Are you emailing it to them, or?
No, I just emailed them. It's actually an Adobe PDF that I just emailed to them, but if I can share with Jason and Kalina, if you want me to send you the Word and the PDF version, and maybe you can mess around with formulas. Happy to do that if that's something you two know how to
The
do.
only way I would know how to do it is to make it a massive Excel spreadsheet that they're populating it on a different tab that looks like a form. Which then to send the whole thing around like that, we definitely want some password protection on it. I don't know if Jason knows a more elegant way to do it.
I've done it by
I can-
letting them have whatever format they want, but it pushes to a local summary document. And we can make that summary document the exact format as is in the capital spreadsheet. But I haven't had the experience of trying to do links out of PDFs into Excel documents, so that's beyond my scope. But if it's all in Excel, it's simply straightforward.
Okay, so what I have is a draft. I did password protect it before I set it around everybody. I don't know if it worked or not. That's why I didn't save it up to the Google Drive, because it eliminated the password protection when I did that. I'm happy to send you guys around an unpassword protected, just, again, use it for testing and so forth. That will, and you guys can play with it as you see fit. With I mean, and again, and then we can maybe just get a kind of regroup on the 11th and see where we are with that, and just see what ideas are there. And maybe maybe that necessitates just kind of a subcommittee just taking that and running with it. I think that might be the best.
And Chris, I took about a half an hour to go through it, and I've got 20 or 30 comments. Probably is more onerous to try to do right now. Better to do it at a different point. One thing I will offer for thought, I embedded a master inflation rate into the document of 2%.
Yep,
It's
that's
not
still in there.
appropriate. We should have a 3 or 4% rate in there, which will skew the numbers rather significantly, but may want to give some thought as to what the more appropriate inflation rate would be.
Yep.
I looked it up. The state-based 5-year inflation rate is supposedly historically 3.2%. But they're projecting for the next 5 years 3%. But I think we know for capital, it's well above that.
Right.
So, we should probably update that.
We can put in whatever we want. I mean, it's just the number's scary, I mean, not scary. The number is what it is, but it's just, as you can see, it's over the next 5 or so years, we're looking at upwards of $70 million. So those are asks. Those are not, confirmed needs, but I don't think there's a lot on here that isn't something that we don't need at some point, but that's it. I mean, so again, I'll send this around unprotected. Jason, I trust you wanted a copy as well, so you can play.
Yes, please.
Okay, sure. So Jason, right, Kalina, great. And again, just we'll I don't think there's any pressure to get anything perfect by the 11th. We'll just come back with some ideas. That's good. The policy, any questions on that? I mean, thanks, Kalina, for bringing that up. Let's see, I'm sharing this. Let me stop sharing this. Unless there's anything else we wanted to talk to about the spreadsheet itself at this point. I don't think there's a whole lot other than the numbers are pretty needy. How's that? We'll leave it at that. There's
Chris, I will note it's at a kind of a mile up level. One of the shortcomings of it right now is the information is very much incomplete in some departments. So things like last time things were purchased, it's the only methodology we have to record when we last purchased something. It makes it, for my very limited memory, makes it very hard to remember what we funded, what we didn't fund.
Yep.
That would take input from the departments and possibly some help from Leslie as far as things that have been funded in the last 5 years to make sure those are
Right.
populated. But there's a lot of that to be done.
Correct. And so Jason and Kalina, just for your information too, some of this stuff has been approved, or there might be stuff on this spreadsheet that was actually approved for funding at a prior town meeting, but has yet to be acquired because of the COVID-19, supply chain, whatever it might be. I mean, so I think there are some of those things, and that's why it would be important. I think Leslie might be able to provide us. And again, not that we're going to be calling Leslie every day, because I know she's got her thing, but she would probably be the best as far as the gatekeeper for what's been approved, what's been what has been funded, quote unquote, but just has not hit the spreadsheet yet for a new acquisition because it hasn't been delivered.
Sorry, who's Leslie?
Leslie's a town accountant, Leslie Gurton. She's a town accountant. Yeah, Leslie, and was it Michelle? And Michelle's her assistant. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't met Leslie, she's excellent. She's really good.
Yeah, and she's very easy to work with. She likes working with all of us, so that's important.
The
We
one
would be
question
lost.
I have about the policy and the spreadsheet is
Yep.
How they interact, right? Like, what is the function of the spreadsheet meant to be? In the policy, it says we have an inventory, which
Yep.
is what the spreadsheet looks like, except it's also requests. And then we're to have a plan, a 5-year plan of what we anticipate purchasing,
Yep.
which the spreadsheet doesn't necessarily look like that to me. It looks like a list of all the things we could purchase, but not a plan for things that we would purchase in the next 5 years.
Yeah,
Well-
on that, there is a tabulation sheet called master asset listing
Okay,
that interrogates the individual departmental spreadsheets and concatenates them. So it can be the master asset list for the town so long as we don't let an asset expire. So it can be enhanced, it can be done better, but it's in there at some level of functionality.
yeah, that's great. And so we may have, like you said, we can get some better information from some of the department heads about when it was purchased and make
Right.
it even more accurate. But it should be able to serve as that asset inventory.
That
Right.
was the hope. But we've been kind of doing this as a standalone. That's why, the questions about Jennifer, could we have some resources potentially for maintenance? But as with any large spreadsheet, the big issue is maintenance and keeping things current.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting it together.
Yeah, and the plan is the plan. I mean, so basically those, we do have it's a plan. I mean, for 5 years as to what is expected to be purchased. Now, keep in mind that doesn't necessarily the process in the town is the capital expenditures are what 2/3 town meeting approval, right? So there are.
Not necessarily.
No,
Only
okay.
if from the capital investment fund.
Oh, well, only from CIB. Well, okay, and then if it's a debt exclusion override, then of course it's a town meeting, and then also the ballot box. So I mean those are things that may weigh into some of those some of the planned acquisitions.
So is it
But-
our intention then to use the spreadsheet as the plan document as well? Like that is the plan? Okay.
Correct.
So if it's in that, all right. So I think we
Correct.
we definitely need to have that priority column then, and.
Yep.
But I think that's a great discussion for the 11th.
Okay,
The requested date and the priority kind of go hand in hand. So by selecting when you need it, you're essentially selecting a priority. As it used to be, we would have an additional summary table by priority, but it really got messy as far as, what's your priority? You may have a priority 1 5 years out and a priority 3 you need this year, and it was confusing.
Changing personnel, of course, has made the document difficult as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
especially in the DPW. We've had a list of potential purchases planned, and we get somebody else, and it completely changes. So yeah, it would be nice to try to nail it down.
All right. So anything else before we move on from capital? I hate to glance over it, but I also want to be respectful of everybody's time too. I don't think we're glancing over. I think that was a good discussion. But is there anything else I can help or that we can address this evening that we think would help all of
Well,
us?
Chris, I'll offer if you want to, you and I can get together and go over the laundry list that I've got. And
Okay,
you can decide if you want to put those in before we get together.
very good. I'll gladly do that. Good. In the meantime, and I'll also make a point to send around the unpassword protected version to Jason Kleena and you, Ray. Obviously, Pete, you're welcome to it if you want.
Yeah.
But
When is this library meeting?
it's Friday at what, 10 o'clock?
Friday. This Friday. At Jen's office?
No,
No.
at the library.
At the library.
And for everybody that doesn't know, Anna, I think everybody knows, but Anna is leaving service with the town, unfortunately. So this is an opportunity for the facilities director to get a full download of everything that's on the plate, contemplated, and to try to get some of that information passed along, and hopefully never to return in a real way to the next library director's plate.
Hopefully. Like your optimism. That's great. Okay. Anything else on capital at this point? Thanks all. Good discussion to get us going at least. The fourth item is appointment of members to FISP. And I don't know, Jen, if you want, I know there was a select board meeting back in July, and you brought up the purpose of FISP, and you can possibly give us a brief summary as to how where we are.
Sure. So even prior to that, the last meeting of FISP, and I think Ray could attest to it as well, there was kind of a disconnect between members of the select board of what is FISP and it really came down to, is FISP a new building committee, or is FISP more broad than that? So I'm just going to share again real quick. So this was a document, and this document is a little outdated with membership, but if you the mission here, the select board did agree that this is the mission of FISP. So the mission of the committee shall be to establish a strategic plan for the municipal buildings of West Boylston. Once formulated, the committee will begin to take steps necessary to implement that strategic plan. The committee will work with the capital planning committee and the town's financial team to formulate an acceptable way of dealing with the financing of such plan. They could be given general supervision over the design and construction of all public buildings, including the authority to employ professional assistance upon the approval of the Board of Selectmen and subject to the authorization of the town to enter into contracts, et cetera, et cetera. So they did decide that is the mission of FISP, is to develop an overall plan. They also decided to radically change the makeup of FISP. So previously it was the entire select board, one member of FinCom, and I believe one member of the public. Now it is 2 members of the select board, 2 members of FinCom, and 3 members of the general public. So it's no longer select board plus a few others. It's really more of its own entity. The question came up of, when you are looking at municipal buildings and you're trying to decide, is this a FISP project or not? Will the threshold be the same $20,000 threshold for a capital item, or will it be something higher, that we're only really talking about major building maintenance or repair issues, 100,000, 200,000, $500,000. They decided to allow FISP to formulate and to answer that question for themselves. The other key question that arose in the meeting, the last meeting of FISP, was the relationship between the schools and FISP, and by the same token, although it wasn't raised to that meeting, the relationship between the library. Select Board has care, custody, and control of all of municipal buildings except the library, which the library trustees have care, custody, and control of that building, and the school committee has care, custody, and control of the schools. So in terms of the schools specifically, FISP will need to work closely with the school committee, that all of the projects that are contemplated both by the school committee and by FISP on the town side will need to work in coordination. They can't be in a vacuum. We can't time 2 debt exclusions for the same year, but that really the school committee will retain the schools. And then FISP, as long as the library trustees are happy with the direction, that the FISP will help manage and plan those strategic projects for the library. So we need another member from FinCom to be in FISP.
All right,
I
there we
do
go.
think,
Great.
if I could just add one more thing, I know there with the kind of 2 bigger potential building projects of the DPW and the fire department being on the radar for some point in the not so distant future, but not so near future either. There was a desire to get FISP more actively involved and engaged in this process and have boots on the ground. I think with revising FISP, we're going to have to get 3 members of the public involved. I don't think that FISP likely will really be underway and moving and understanding what they are and diving into all these projects for probably 6 months or more. So Capital Investment Board will probably have to still hold some of that weight on their shoulders until there can be that transition. I mean, of course, if we got certain people from the public who are already kind of tapped in, then that might be less of a transference of knowledge.
And I assume you've had discussions with the schools about some of these changes, updates. If I take just at face value what you said, that the FISP will have a sense of its mission within 6 months, it does suggest that funding for the school improvements is probably looking a couple of years out. Am I exaggerating things here, or have you had that conversation? I'm curious how you're looking.
Let's put it this way. There's a meeting next week that if you didn't hear at the last Select Board meeting, the school submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority again for a new middle high school. And for the first time that this submission has been sent into the MSBA, out of 60 or so applicants, the school has progressed out of that original pool to now there's a site visit scheduled for next week.
Okay.
Yes, so
Interesting.
it's very early. It's very early. They're just visiting next week. I don't know where it's going to go from there, but if selected for an MSBA project, I think that kind of changes everything. So they're still going ahead with the boiler project, but right now we kind of have to see, I think it makes good sense to see anyways, where MSBA is going to land.
Okay, that's interesting.
Great, thanks. Jen, just to clarify too, I heard you say earlier that the town can only entertain 1 debt exclusion override per year. Is that, or did I hear you wrong? No, okay.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry. I thought I heard the same thing.
Oh, okay. Good. All right, good. I just wanted to make sure that.
Now I'm thinking, what did I say? No, not true. I don't know what that was in relation to. I was saying
I
that
mean,
the 2/3 vote
Oh,
is not required for capital.
okay, okay, no, that's, yeah, I thought it was, all right, good. All right, so I'll open up the floor to nominations for members to FISP. I mean, Ray, you are already sitting on that board?
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm certainly willing to continue.
All right, great. Do I have anyone interested in grabbing that second position from FinCom?
I'm
No,
interested.
you would be. All right, great.
Yeah,
That's
I will
great.
say, Lena, that you'll learn a lot in a short period of time as far as how all of these pieces go together. So it would be a good thing to get your feet wet on. A long investment of time, but a good thing to get your feet wet on.
Okay, so I will make the motion to have Ray continue as representative and have Kalina as the second representative or the first. I'm sorry, I don't mean to numerically rate anyone. I mean, so Ray and Kalina will be the two representatives for my motion is to have Ray and Kalina be our two representatives to the
Right.
FISP.
Second.
Again, great. Any further discussion? Jason, you've been quiet. I don't want to leave you out, but are you?
Okay, I have too many kids to join another committee right now.
Great. All right. It's fine. Yeah, your day will come. So don't worry. That's great. All right, good.
Wise
So
man.
yeah. All right. So no further discussion. All those in favor, and I will do a vote. We'll do a roll call. So Pete Murphy,
Yeah, I see, yes.
Jason Brockway,
Yes.
yes, good. Chris Berglund, yes. Clean Archibald,
Yes.
Ray Burkhalter.
Yes.
Right, unanimous. Thank you all very much. That's great. Okay, so we'll keep it rolling. Election of officers. We have 3 positions. We have actually at the last meeting we just voted a vice chair. So that's one thing. I don't know if we need to do that again or not, but I think we're good in that one unless we want to. Do we have any nominations for chair? And the other position, of course, is the secretary clerk, which Pete Murphy has so dutifully performed for
I'm sure there'll
many.
be many volunteers who want to take it. I
Yeah.
invite you to, just step up.
Step up. All right. All right. And any nominations for chair?
Chris Berglund, I'll nominate Chris.
Oh, geez. Oh, boy.
Yeah,
Great.
Chris, are you deeming this an annual election? We've had that
That's a-
conversation that I would be willing to step in, but not until after the fall town meeting. I'm not going to be able to have the bandwidth until after that.
Well, we can do it. And I don't know, perhaps Jennifer, you can, I think we can redo election officers at any time, correct? I mean, I think it's typical, it's customary to do once a year, but
If you resign, you have to have an
reorganize
election.
this year.
what's it?
I said,
So
if you
it's
resign, you have to.
mandated that you
Okay.
reorganize once a year, but you
Once
can
a year.
reorganize more than
Reorg.
you
Okay,
can
thanks.
do it.
All right, great. So, and I'll, I don't know how we do this friendly amendment to your nomination, Pete, but I would love to add to that you continue to serve as clerk secretary.
All right. We have a
As a
second.
As Pete has control over the notes, it might end up being somebody else. You just
Right,
don't
that's
know.
Power is, you write the minutes that you wish had happened.
Be happy to second those if Pete
Oh,
and
good.
Chris are willing to continue serving.
Thank you.
Well, I'm willing, but I'm certainly willing to step aside if there's somebody that was really anxious to jump in, or just anxious to. But any other nominations? Okay. Hearing none, we're gonna have to do a roll call again, vote. So we'll do Kalina Archibald. Aye. Ray Burkhalter.
Hi.
Aye. Jason Brockway.
Aye.
Pete Murphy.
Aye.
And Chris Berglund. Aye. All right. Good. Thank you all. That's good. So now we're at least organized for now. That's good to start the year. Again, trying to be sensitive to everybody's time here in the summertime and in my nice humid basement here. It's wonderful. Town accountant reports. I don't know if everybody had a chance to look at, question. I did also include the email that Leslie had sent along with those reports as a PDF document. At least I think I did. Maybe I didn't.
I didn't see that one, Chris.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry. I
Preliminary
thought I
June
had.
23. I think there's an email in here.
Yeah, I saw it.
There was, right? Yeah.
I saw
Yeah,
it.
preliminary to June 23. Yeah. Which had, which basically goes through
I see it. Never mind. Sorry.
all of the, basically kind of summarizes all the reports. And at the time she sent this, she seemed to think we were in pretty good shape. I think we still are, right? I don't think there's been anything that's risen up. Obviously, she did bring up the all important mention of ARPA money and all that kind of fun stuff. So it's a good. If you have any questions on that, happy to have them directed to me, and I can bug Leslie with them. But if you want to go through each one of these, the trial balance basically talks about all the different funds. It's very difficult because of timing, to try to get a concise picture of exactly where we are at one point in time. I mean, I was trying to reconcile one of the funds back, and Leslie said, "Oh no, that's got 3 years, goes back 3 years. It's got funds in it from this fund, commitments to that." And I'm like, okay, but certainly welcome questions if you have any on that stuff.
Well, just a general one, and the governor just signed the budget. Do we know if there were any material differences between the budget she signed and what we planned on? Nothing.
Just a slight increase. So nothing, not an increase to write home about, nothing that's gonna positively impact us in a meaningful way, but no negatives either. And although I will say this, there were 2 legislative earmarks that prevailed in the final budget of significance. You never know where those are gonna go. So those both need to be expended by June 30th of next year. One is $150,000 for Pride Park, and the second is $75,000 for ADA upgrades to municipal buildings.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for mentioning that, Jen, because that was the other thing. And I think I put that in the email to everybody that this capital plan that I shot around did not account for any of the ADA upgrades. But again, certain of some of those programs, and Jen, you do have a document out on the town's website that basically calls for any comments from the community on the ADA plan that you put together a very comprehensive picture on it, just as far as priorities, some funding sources for some, so on and so forth.
Yep.
And it's a really good strategy.
We will have to pull those into the overall capital plan at some point. I mean, some of them though, like if you look at that document, some of them say there's no timeline for completion because they require a major funding source like a debt exclusion. So it just simply says requires outside funding such as a debt exclusion. And that's where that lives.
Right. So, but that's good. Very helpful. So unless there's anything else on that, I'm happy to go through it, but I think Leslie does a great job, and I know she's probably getting into audit season, so it's gonna get, she's gonna have, that's why it's always good to kind of temper requests for her too, because you want to be sensitive to her time. It's not like she has a huge department to fall back on. They were pretty lean, and it's always good to be patient but we'll definitely get her to a meeting, and Jason and Cleena definitely get you guys introduced to her. And anything else on accountant reports?
What's the opioid settlement revenue?
I can speak to that.
Do you want to speak to? Yeah, I was going to say, I know there's some interesting accounting for that. So,
Sure. So the town was involved in a nationwide class action lawsuit. And we're starting to receive funds, from the settlement as different, opioid manufacturers and distributors are settling out in that class action. We're starting to receive money for that. The treatment of the funds is where it becomes interesting. So
Right.
we have been hearing for probably about a year that there's going to be a legislative solution for how we treat these funds, and we are still waiting for that legislative solution. So at the moment, what is happening is these funds are flowing into free cash, but they need to be tracked and not expended out of free cash. So once the legislature does set up that mechanism for holding those funds, they'll be transferred directly into that special account. And then in terms of expenditures out of those funds, the state has actually recently partnered with a consultant to help us in tracking and managing those, but it could be anywhere from a school resource officer to mitigation, drug abuse prevention, purchase of Narcan, whatever the case may be, but it needs in short, we receive this funding from the class action because we were directly impacted by the opioid epidemic, and the money needs to go to offset those impacts.
can't be used for roads or anything like that. That's not.
Right, and so that's why it needs to be, that's why she kind of put that caveat that money's coming in, but it's not up for grabs.
Good question.
Thank you.
All right, good. Anything else on town reports? All right, other business not reasonably foreseeable to the chair. Again, I'm just going to, go ahead, Pete.
We, just to remind you, we probably want to meet with the water department at some point, hear about their new facility. Also, any issues they have, related to, PFAS and where that stands. No urgency, just, put it on our meeting list in the future, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. I know we had spoken about that and I just kind of dropped the ball on that. I mean, if you're willing to reach out to them, we could just add them.
Mike Coveney's the director. I do know him, but I'm thinking sometime, late or early next year, probably we should hear from him at one of our meetings.
That'd be great. Yeah, if you want to
All
get him on. Yeah, super. That would be great. And again, thanks again to Paul Bonson. I'm sorry that he can't be here, but geez, I think he goes back to Ray when you and I started, right? I think he was right.
Yeah, I
around
think he
the same
came
time.
on a little while after we'd started.
Yeah, but that's a lot of years. It brought a lot of local knowledge, a lot of business knowledge. It was great, and we'll miss him. I hope they enjoy Maine. Oh man, that's kind of I know they have family up there, but that's tough winters. That's all I can say.
Wrong way.
Oof. And big bugs in the springtime too. That's it. But anyways, all right. Anything else for our meeting this evening? Thanks all for your time, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Great. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Thanks, Clena. All right. All those in favor? I don't think we need a voice vote on that. We can voice vote on this is fine, right? All those in favor? Aye.
Hey.
Aye. Great. Unanimous, right? Unanimous. Great. Thanks, everybody.